Hey everybody, thanks for checking out this week's episode of My First Sketch at myfirstsketch.com. I'm Josh Hyam. As always, feel free to subscribe to the show on iTunes or on SoundCloud, get it automatically. If you use Stitcher, you can get it there. It's usually up on YouTube. You can like the podcast on Facebook, facebook.com/myfirstsketch. My email, josh@myfirstsketch.com. And you can follow me on Twitter at myfirstsketch. I've told you all for weeks, and I'm telling you again. Philly Sketch Fest presents Philly Sketchfringe on September 15th. 3 shows at the Playground at the Adrian. 7 p.m., Dog Mountain and House of Solitude. 8:30 p.m., John and Ian, The Decoy, The Prince. And 10:30 p.m., High Drama and the Mean Wendy Band. You can't go wrong with any of that. Go to the ticket page with the link, myfirstsketch.com/sketchfringe. As I continue my chats with friends in fringe shows, today's guest is Rose Luardo, currently a member of the New Dreamz. A bit of departure from the normal format of the podcast. We didn't do a recording of an early piece of Rose. Too much of her work is too visual for an audio medium. So I've embedded a bunch of her videos over at myfirstsketch.com. Check them out. But here is my conversation with Rose. Hey, Rose.
Hey.
All right, so I know very little about Comedy Dreamz, New Dreamz, so you're going to fill me in on a whole bunch of histories. But where do you get started? Like, what's the first thing you do performance-wise?
All right. Let's see. Okay, hold on. Spread it a little thinner. When you say what's the first thing you do? What's the first thing that I think of myself as being? Like, how would I define myself as a performance person, or like?
Let's start there then.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I would say I'm an art person.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say that my mediums are video and performance and fine art.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of like smash and bang on in those 3 spheres.
And then, where does comedy come in for you? Like, because whenever you're performing, whenever I see you performing, you're generally performing at comedy theaters, whether it was good, or there might even be a comedy context. I know there's other things that you do, but like, because I'm a comedy person, that's, my basic memory of everything that you've done is either, Comedy Dreamz or New Dreamz, Incredible Dreams coming up. I think we've only crossed paths or shared green rooms at 1 Minute Monologues, those kinds of things. So where does the comedy fit into the video, fine arts?
Okay. So the first few times I went to, I have some advanced performance training through HPI, which is the Headlong Performance Institute.
Okay.
And that is movement and dance. But it's really about generating performance work.
Mm-hmm.
And everything I did in that space was really funny. Or to me was funny, or I was really interested in being funny, or I wanted it to be funny. I gravitate towards humor type things. I think even my artwork is pretty funny.
Mm-hmm.
So I first started working, generating solo material through HPI. And soon after that, I was doing something called devised theater. I don't know if you're familiar with that. That's what Pig Iron does. Mm-hmm. So it's you get a bunch of actors together and you have them improv and just generate material and kind of work with their own dialogue and vibe with each other until they come up with the dialogue that. This is what Matt and Jacquie and Andrew and I did last year for Incredible Dreams. Okay. We just kind of riffed and ideas stuck together. And so when I was doing that with this other group, it was called No Face Performance Group. I realized that everything I was doing was stand-up-ish or joke-oriented or, making things kind of funny. Even if the subject material was heavier, I was leaning it towards it being funny.
Do you have any idea of where that comes from? Like, were you a comedy kid growing up? Were you watching comedy? Were you?
Okay, so I was a mild comedy kid. Because when I see comedy kids now, I'm like, damn, that's a comedy kid. I'm like raised on that shit.
Yeah.
Only eating that. A strict diet of that.
Yeah.
But HBO had had a series like in the 80s of different comedians that they would showcase. One of them I remember was Whoopi Goldberg. Mm. And honestly, I think this was the best work she ever did. So they would showcase comedy. They had what else did they?
Were these like half hours or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes they were even longer than that. Sometimes it would be a full hour. Mm-hmm. And I would watch the shit out of those again and again and again. I loved Saturday Night Live. And then the other thing that I liked was horror movies.
Okay. Well, let's stop with Whoopi Goldberg because the only Whoopi Goldberg stand-up I've ever seen was probably like a mid-90s HBO special. Because she's just much more famous as an actress. Sure. Like at least to me, where she was doing jokes, or story, and then she like devolved into this character for like the last 15 minutes. And I think I was like 10 or 11 when I saw this, and it was completely different than anything I've ever seen before, and I wasn't entirely sure how to take it. Like,
in what way? Were you like, I don't think this is comedy anymore?
No,
or
yeah,
I had this happening here.
I had this idea of what stand-up comedy was, or what she was supposed to be doing with this time on television, and then she stopped doing it, and just completely changed my perception of what it is. And I don't think it was funny, and maybe I was just too young, like out of context or whatever. It would be interesting for me to go back and find that special and think about it again, because it felt to be pretty heavy subject matter.
That's what this first comedy special was as well.
So
it would start off.
We might be talking about the same thing entirely.
So she did like 4 or 5 characters. Mm-hmm. One of them was like a weird drug addict. One of them was a child. One of them was a prostitute. So she would play these characters, mm-hmm. and then slowly it would just get really crazy.
Yeah.
And by crazy, I mean like sad, real, and complicated.
Right. And I think this is like something that I think she's won a Tony for. So like, it might have been that Broadway one-woman show or whatever that I might have seen. I don't remember.
However, I don't think she was writing her own material, or she did not write that first piece that I saw. She wrote some of it, but she did it with Robin Williams. Mm. So he was writing with her and for her.
Okay.
And here's what I really gravitated towards was character.
Yeah.
Like a character. And you know what? Honestly, I could go so far with how she was kind of turning it on its head and making it kind of serious and sad. But what I think I liked more was that stand-up comedy is a place that will hold a lot of different things. Like you can get up there and be a Judy Tenuta or mm-hmm. an Emo Phillips or a Bobcat Goldthwait. You can go there and be like Pauly Shore, and it can live there and be legit there. You can do a lot there. You can really do a lot there.
Yeah, there's a lot of people. I mean, one of the people that I think about now, and he gets kind of crapped on by certain comedy fans, Larry the Cable Guy is very distinctly a character on stage, and there's certain people that are like, no, you have to be yourself on stage. Like, I know David Cross is always like, he hates Larry the Cable Guy and this whole fake persona that he becomes, but it's not completely out of the ordinary. Like,
absolutely not.
Like Larry the Cable Guy, his humor might not be directed towards me. I might not be his target audience, but that's as old as stand-up comedy has been. Like the idea of creating this character to become a whole different person and to bring it forward a different viewpoint. Like.
But what about Andy Kaufman did a lot of
Andy Kaufman is not a stand-up, but he did stand-up
venues. Sure.
Like I think he's got his face on the Comedy Store's wall, like doing weird whatever he wanted to do, and like you mentioned Saturday Night Live. Do you have a favorite Saturday Night Live cast member?
Chris Farley.
Yeah. It's funny, like I don't know, because you mentioned characters, and I don't see him necessarily as a character person. Like, I mean, you mentioned that you gravitate towards characters, so I was thinking, because I asked that of everybody. It's one of my patented questions or, whatever, trademark things, I was expecting someone else. Like, I was expecting, like, Gilda Radner or Kristen Wiig, Dana Carvey, Phil Hartman, because they become these characters more often than Chris Farley. So what was it about Chris Farley that...
Oh, my God, that motherfucker is so funny. That bitch tears it the fuck up. He's intense. I like his intensity.
Mm-hmm.
I like that he is, like, full on. I mean, it might have been the cocaine speaking.
Yeah, it might have been.
There's something ferocious about him.
Mm-hmm.
There's something a little scary and wild about him. There's something about a commitment level that doesn't stop, that's so compelling. There's something so live and unbridled and bananas about him.
Mm-hmm.
There's something about him where, oh God, I think I like a little bit of like danger. And there's something a little dangerous about him. I mean, obviously, I think he lived his life dangerously.
Yeah.
But there's something really tweaky and deep and fucked up about what became of him as, right before he died.
Mm-hmm.
Like, but like the prostitution and the Catholicism and the cocaine.
Yeah.
And so he would like...
Have you read his book? I think it was his one brother put together this oral history and interviewed all these other people in his life to create a biography of Chris Farley, and it's really good.
Okay, sometimes I won't let myself look at that. I don't want to... Okay, I've demystified and unpacked a bunch of it. I'm like, do I want to... I won't read Madonna's brother's book about Madonna either, for the same reason. I like... What am I doing here? I'm kind of holding on to like these beliefs that I don't want to be debunked.
I don't think whatever beliefs you have about Chris Farley would be debunked in the book.
Okay.
It's reverent enough, like, to Chris Farley, but at the same time real enough that, like, yeah, he had major issues, but this was who he was. Like, the whole Catholic, like how you're talking, like Catholicism versus prostitution and drug abuse versus addiction and all that stuff, like how this...
And how he kind of couldn't get these things to really shake hands.
Yeah.
He couldn't get these aspects of his life to shake hands. Did you ever hear this quote that Chris Rock has where he saw him out? I guess they were in LA. I don't know what was going on. But he saw him out, and they were talking, and he's like, I'm never going to see this guy again. This guy's going to die. I think this is the last time I'm going to see this guy. And I'm just like, that fucking blows my mind. Because I think on some level, those guys were brosifs, a little bit, at least. And no one really knocked to say... I mean, I don't know what kind of help he was receiving. I don't know if there was anybody that was...
He had gone to rehab a lot. Like, he had tried a lot. I know that.
Damn, motherfucker.
I know, like...
Just stuck with him.
I almost want to say double digits attempts.
Oh, sure. Okay,
like,
yeah. I believe.
Because I think even during his time on SNL, they threatened to fire him if he didn't take the summer to do it. Like, so, yeah, he's been... Because even that last time that he was on Saturday Night Live, like, I think he hosted 2 months before he died, and half the jokes were his rehab time, and they were so worried that they had Chris Rock on standby as a substitute host. Like, which is pretty awful if you think about it, that, people that you've worked with for years...
But that's another thing. I'm like, that's a little bit like This Is Family. That's a little bit like, okay, listen, we're inviting you all to this wedding, and so-and-so is going to, like, be a groomsman. But, like, listen, Cousin Rick, we need you in the wings because we all know what's
something
going
might
on.
go
yeah,
down.
We all know. And you know this about yourself as well. Because there was something, obviously very self-referential about the I mean, I did not know... At the time when he was alive and performing, I didn't know about the prostitutes and the Catholicism. That I only found out.
Yeah.
Post,
he
But you know what I'm talking about? That, like, there's something scary about him, right? Like, there's something like wild style about how he performed and how physical it was. How about that bit that he does with Patrick Swayze?
The Chippendales dance. Yeah.
And how, like, sweaty and, like, huffy and, like, but, like, how intense the movements are and stuff. Or, like, fat guy in a little coat. Or, like, down, van down by the river.
I forget who it was. It was probably David Spade, since he's generally regarded as, like, the best friend. He said that if Chris Farley was in the right mind and not on something, Chippendales would never have happened. That Chippendales was a byproduct of being on drugs and being such a people pleaser, because that was another thing about Chris Farley, that like he always wanted to be like loved and respected, and so you had like this like iconic sketch. It's one of the probably like the top 20 most famous, funniest things that probably came out of a kind of a dark place for Chris Farley.
But don't you think that a lot of really great comedy comes out of a special dark place?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
Do you remember?
It's how we adjust to things. It's how we cope with things.
Do you remember seeing like any like Raw or Eddie Murphy's Raw?
I've never seen any of Eddie Murphy's stand-up
Some
movies.
Of that shit is, oh God, it's a little angry.
Yeah, because
like,
I forget which one. Isn't there? I forget if it's Raw or Delirious, but isn't there just a straight like 10-minute bit that's just straight homophobic at that point or something? Like,
yes.
And
absolutely
30 years ago, it was totally okay, and no one blinked twice about it. Like
that, and there's some of Richard Pryor's stand-up that is also dark.
Oh, yeah. The idea of him lighting a match and like Richard Pryor running down the street. Like, I've seen that kind of stuff, and the idea of using comedy as a place to be honest about either your hang-ups or like, it is a really fulfilling art form, I think, at times, if you're using it that way instead of just making fart jokes and stuff.
I think it's also a place to like get into weird world.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a place to where you can touch into weird world and use it as kind of a jump off for that kind of material. Yeah.
All right, so back to you, because we spent a lot of time on Chris Farley there.
Okay.
HPI, you're doing movement work, and you're like, I don't want to call you the comic relief, but you're noticing that you're gravitating towards the funny.
Yes.
More than probably your castmates, your classmates, or.
Yes.
So what's your next step of performing? Like, what's your next thing?
All right. So I had a friendship with Andrew Jeffrey Wright, who is a fine artist, who is also somebody who's just deeply funny. Mm-hmm. His artwork is deeply funny. He's a deeply funny man. He started doing stand-up maybe a year before I went to HPI. And we started working together to do this like 2-person stand-up kind of stuff. That's what we were calling it at the time. And we were doing it in a lot of galleries. Mm. We were doing it to open gallery shows. He was opening for a band called Man Man. And so he had that going on. And we were going to like art festivals and art galleries and doing our comedy work. And then John Redden, who owns a bar called The Barbary, asked us if we wanted to have a comedy night.
What's the rough timeline to this? Like, when are we talking?
2009?
Okay.
2010, 2011, 2012?
Okay.
Something like that?
Because before we turned the mics on, I was talking about that Barbary show, about how it just felt so much in another world. It felt so far away. Like, I knew you guys existed. I knew people that were doing the show. But for whatever reason, you were in Fishtown or whatever you want to call it, Northern Liberties. And it just, I don't know. It was never accessible to me. Like,
well, also, do you think that, okay, talk about like not being accessible. We were doing it for like a rock and roll crowd, an art crowd, a music crowd.
Right.
Because that kind of show didn't exist at the Barbary. And I don't really know if it ever has or had post. So in other words, we were doing that kind of experimental
You weren't going
thing.
for the normal alternative comedy audience that, PHIT was going for. Like, it wasn't necessarily the improv.
I don't know did PHIT exist yet though? I don't know if PHIT was around, and I know Good wasn't around.
PHIT, I don't know the exact starting point of PHIT. I started getting involved. I took my first class with PHIT in 2011 with Brian Kelly, and at that point, PHIT was doing 2 weeks a month at the Shupin, and now it's grown to their new space and every night of the week. But like, so that probably was like in the first like 3 years of PHIT. Like, PHIT might have officially been a thing like 06, 07. It might not have been that regular, because
I think the reason that we kind of got in there is that I had always been in bands. I was in a performance art band. Well, no, I'm going to call it like pop performance-y band called Sweatheart.
Okay.
And I had been in that band for years. And we had performed at Tiger Beats at the Barbary.
Yeah.
And when John was just looking for, I think he was just looking for stuff. He was just like, let's have some weird shit happen here.
Yeah, because,
like
you need to, if you're going to have a performance space, you need performers performing.
But I think that really what that space caters to, and what I think that, and I should not fucking say this because who am I to say what is what? But I kind of typically thought of that crew as like a rock and roll, music-based, DJ-based, party-based,
right.
hands and knees kind of situation. So
Yep.
for them to put up this like comedy thing was just different than what they had been doing there.
Like, what night of the week were you doing generally?
We usually picked it, but sometimes it was a Thursday or a Tuesday.
Okay.
That's what I think it was, Thursday or Tuesday
so,
we did.
Like, on one hand, I think, off night, not necessarily a party night for people, not
well,
necessarily
Wednesday
a DJ.
was a big party night.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like,
Wednesday
Tuesday,
was
Thursday are like the step brothers, like the weird nights to do things.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Because there's like certain bands that I'll notice they'll always do Philadelphia like on a Thursday or whatever because they're doing New York from Friday, Saturday. We're always that weird night on the touring schedule. All right, so is that the start of Comedy Dreamz? Is like
that was the sort of so Andrew and I started performing together when we were doing work as a duo. It was the New Dreamz. Then when we did that comedy night, and it was actually, which was Comedy Dreamz, it was Andrew and Rose and another artist named Jason Musson, who has since left Philadelphia. But the three of us had it going on. And Jason really only did one night. And he's like, I can't hang with this. I cannot hang with this. So he left. And then Andrew and I would go to open mics, much more Andrew than it was me. And he would find, people that we just thought we had something in common with, or that, we were comedy aligned.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I really liked that it was a smattering of people. I don't know if you know Sidney Gant was one of these.
I know the name, yeah.
Early friends, and Joe Bell, and who else? Michael S. Watkins.
Because I did a little digging. I rarely do research, because for most part, 60 some episodes, all of them have been just my friends that I've known for a while. So when I talk to people that I'm not used to, I try not to but I was seeing stuff about the Comedy Dreamz shows, and there was Brendan Kennedy was showing up in as stand-up. There was stand-up acts. There was a dance troupe.
Oh yeah, Body Dreams.
Yeah.
Everything is dreams.
Yeah. I just remember the time that always hearing that there was this weird thing at the Barbary, and I never went, and I don't know necessarily why I didn't go, other than
it's far.
You can do it's fine. It's no farther than Johnny Brenda's or Kung Fu Necktie, or places I actually have seen shows at. So I don't know if I was just being a jerk about it or lazy. I'll go with lazy. I'm lazy a lot. Right. So Comedy Dreamz, or the New Dreamz, what is the influence for the two of you as a duo,
I think, okay. All right, here's what I'm going to say about this. I think part of the influence is 20 years of friendship. That Andrew and I have just known each other for so long. We like a lot of the same things. We will arrive at some of the same performance places in different ways. I think that we match each other's temperament pretty well. Yeah. In other words, I'm a lot of high energy. He's a little bit more, he's lower energy, but he's deeply weird. Sometimes he and I will just be living life, and something will happen. It'll pop some shit off for us. Okay. Sometimes we'll watch a lot of movies together. We'll stay up late just talking about things. We'll go places and just look at shit, and it'll spark our curiosity. We'll write a little something down, come back together and talk about it.
So it's not just a business partnership. It's not just a creative partnership. You guys are actually deeply friends and deeply friends. Because that's something I always wonder about and talk to people or try to bring up is how many different sketch groups are a business. Not business because no one's making money on this level really, but it's the four of us, we work well together, let's do this, but we'll come in for 2 hours, we'll work, and then we'll just leave and see you guys next week, versus best friends who are constantly talking to each other, constantly doing things, versus, you know, romantic partners, how they work together, or
Andrew and I
siblings.
Yes. Oh my God. Wow. That's a really good. These are good questions.
I try.
Hey, Miss, you got good questions. Okay. Andrew and I aren't romantic, but we don't have a conventional friendship.
Right.
You know, like at a time in our lives, there was a lot. I would sleep over at his house a lot. He introduced me to my husband.
Mm-hmm.
He is one of the first friends that I met when I moved to Philadelphia. So yeah, so I think that there, you know, like there's the thing that happens when you're with your friends where you know that friend well, or like you're excited to tell the friend about a thing or, you know, something that you saw or an event happening. You're excited to go and do things with that friend. You want to take trips with them. You know what that friend likes. You get, you know, there's that excited creative fodder there.
Do you have like a full like shorthand of how you guys work together? Like, is this like, are you at the point where like you can shoot each other looks and know something's not working, something is working? That's a better idea. Like
sometimes I think that he and I, I think that he and I sometimes battle it out for a way of making the material come to life. So sometimes, and I think everything polite has kind of left the room because we're so close. So they'll be like, I don't like it when you do that. That's fucked up. You fuck that up. That's wrong. Don't say it like that. And Andrew and I can both be really exacting. So don't say it this way, say it this way. You forgot that word. That's not, I don't like that shirt. That watch is wrong. I'm like, yes, you know, there's something about that too, where like you have that give and take to say those things to your.
Yeah, that total like freedom to be it's not necessarily being mean but like knowing that it's not a personal attack or personal criticism. It's, I want it this way. Like there's almost like an auteur element to it. Like, because like whenever I write something and I have enough, or it's an opportunity where I have to give it off to someone else to do it, there's still a part of me that's like, don't do it that way. Like it's very real. Like, and that's just be my own jerkiness about it. But like,
do you think it is? And hell no. But don't feed my child that fried rice. I don't want my child eating that. You want your child to, you know, if you wrote it and you had this idea, don't do it that way. It's don't do it that way.
But like, I know people, and I worked with people before, and you know, bringing one of my pieces, and I always had to act in my own pieces as part of like my control process. And I mean, you guys are a duo, so that's not necessarily an issue because you guys are always going to either be.
Yes, but then do you ever have this? Do you ever see somebody else performing or see something else and it sparks it within you that you want? This is how I started working with Matt and Jacquie. I saw just one piece that they did. It was this skit they did about like karate. We killed mom and dad.
Okay.
And I saw this and I was like, I feel like there's so much potential for the four of us to like get smothered and covered and like layered. And
okay, so how does the collaboration with Matt and Jacquie start?
It's really organic. So last year when we did Incredible Dreamz, it was a configuration of talking, sitting on the couch, smoking cigarettes, eating pretzels, talking about movies, showing each other videos, going through YouTube, and like collecting this organic monster that like became a thing. I think we were all so, the Fringe Festival has changed over the years, but there was something, God. Well, we were playing with making fun of some high art that we have seen. Okay. And I don't know if you saw what we did last year, but
I didn't. I missed it.
It was, we just kind of like took it off the rails and like, and it's in our art gallery. So this year and last year we did it in Space 1026. So it's just kind of like fucking with those things, with those conventions, like art, high art, performance, the Fringe Festival.
Like, is it like a straight parody, or was it a straight parody last year?
No.
Like, or was it just like, these are things we've noticed that jerks are doing. Let's play a little bit with this. And then just Matt and Jacquie and Andrew and I getting into those
nooks and crannies of conversation, like the things that pop off for us. Because you know what, I don't know if they feel this way about Andrew and myself, but I would see things that they did and just connected with it on a level and felt like if we stirred it around, something.
But okay, so what was the first thing where, I mean, you met there, you had this idea of like, hey, I want to work with them. How do you breach that? Like, hey, I would like to work with you guys. Like,
yo, shit, bitch. It has to happen. Also, I was like male female duo.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we did a showcase for Showtime that Aaron and Kate from Good Comedy put together.
Okay.
And I think after that, we were pitching to Showtime like some ideas because they were like, you know, I think Chanel Elliott was doing it as well, and maybe a couple other people. Long story longer. We had this pitch that it would be like, do you remember like Alice and Jack and Sammy? And it was a 1960s or 70s movie about this like polyamorous quadruple.
What is it called? It's like
Ellen
Ted
Alice
and Alice.
Yes.
Carol and
Ted
Bob.
yes, exactly.
Some configuration of those four names.
So I kind of like, we, you know, Andrew and I were riffing on that.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a layer of this piece that we did for the Fringe Festival last year.
Okay.
That would be this like crazy polyamorous quadruple.
Mm-hmm.
I also like that Matt and I are a little bit more like Chris Farley Bonks, and Andrew and Jacquie are, I'm not going to say the straight men, but they're like doing something else. They're a little more grounded.
Right.
And so I really liked how all this shit would like play off of each other. And so the way that we started, I think that after we did the showcase, I was like, we should work with them. And then I sat next to them and said, okay, what do you want to do? Like, let's make something. You guys down? Are you down to clown? Hey guys, you did this. I did this. This is funny. This is like I think Andrew and I also did a piece that was about a weird couple. So they had done, we just were making stuff. And I'm like, there's
enough
two great tastes that taste great together. Chocolate and peanut
yeah.
butter. Yeah. And then we did 1 minute monologues.
Mm-hmm.
And then I kind of took off from there. I knew that I also liked what was happening when we were generating work, and the things that they were showing me were because you know there's an age difference.
Yeah.
But the things that they were showing me, I was so interested in, and I hadn't seen before, and I was like loving it. So, yeah.
Like, what's the rough timeline between starting to work with them and the Fringe show? Like, how long did you guys give yourselves to work on this? Like
no time, like moments.
But you had to were you officially like listed in the Fringe like guide as a thing, or was it? So you had to have at least had some pre-planning of.
Well, we knew we were gonna do something. So we knew something was gonna happen.
So you just put in like new Dreamz in the Fringe thing, and we'll figure it out later, or.
We called it. We wanted it to be a mashup, so it's Incredible Dreamz.
Mm-hmm.
And we had some loose ideas because we had just talked about what was happening for us, or what the places that we were popping off and had some heat and had some like good taste, some good flavor sensation. And then we just played with it. And sometimes I do see that some performance groups, it takes them months and months. I think that the theater, when you're like doing theater craft, it's months and months and months. But I think we probably gave ourselves not even a month.
Yeah, there's a positive to working on things and working them into the ground and get them like to be like the best, months and months and months. And then there's a positive to spur of the moment, not giving yourself enough time, not second guessing yourself almost, like just let's roll with it. Let's see how it goes. If we have to change things after
and how about we make a place for all of our fucking crazy ideas, all the things that might have gotten shelved that like we didn't use. Let's throw all that fucking shit in there, and then let me talk about that shit and see what you have to say and what you have to say and what you have to say, and let's make a cake. And I like what you're saying, not second guessing it and just like getting it out.
Yeah. Okay, so you mentioned being a visual artist in video and sketch. How do you deal with the differences of ideas? Like, if you see something and you see, a thought hits you, is it this is better for this is better for this, I want to pursue it this way? Like, how do you deal with the different media that you use to get your point across? Like,
sometimes it's an idea. Well, sometimes it can go, this is interesting. I had an art show this year, and I made a wall of all different kinds of titties. It was a big, huge wall of titties.
Okay.
And I wanted to make that because I thought that would be a great thing to look at. And originally I was like, oh, these are breasts for men. Mm-hmm. Because I think that the Women's March had happened. And I was like, what about feminist men that want to support and like need some memory situation? So I'll make these like titties and we'll put them on men. But then I ended up putting them on the wall, and I just loved what was happening there. But then, the show came down. And that was an installation, so I didn't sell anything. I think I like gave some of them away or whatever. But I'm like, oh, let's repurpose this. Or like, what would it be if we like made a big, huge mountain of these and just like got in them?
Right.
Or like, what would it be if like it was just like a sea of like Matt like playing guitar and like fucking around with them? So sometimes you can make something and then it has legs and can go elsewhere.
How do you approach like idea generation then? Like, if something's going to be a sculpture or an installation, are you actively looking to repurpose it or be able to?
No, but sometimes it just speaks to you. Like I made a coffin. I made a tie-dyed stuffed coffin that like a small man or a regular-sized woman can get in. Okay. And I haven't done anything with it post the show and having it as an installation piece, but I'm like, oh my god, there's so many really fucked up things you could do with this that would be interesting to look at. For instance, if we put wheels on it and like somebody rolled me down the street, or we'd like just like had a crazy like funeral at like the Acme when somebody just rolled me in and somebody filmed that, I'm just like, oh, there's places you can go with it. And that just kind of comes with like working with the thing long enough. So you make the wall of titties, and as you're generating that, you're like, what else would be really funny? If like Matt was naked in it, or like if Andrew and Matt were naked in it. You know what I mean? And then you're like, ha 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 ha, it's a funny thing.
I mean, you mentioned wheeling a coffin through an Acme. Do you go with like these public displays of?
Sure.
Like, I don't know what you would call it. What would you call that? Like,
I don't know. I probably would want somebody to film that, and I would probably call it some kind of happening.
Right. Like
a comedy happening?
I didn't think of happening, but like that makes sense because
it's a comedy.
Like, it's not quite like a pranky kind of thing where I think other people would do it as like a more.
Is that performance art?
I would imagine so. It's more performance art than prank. I mean, happening probably makes just as much sense as anything else.
Comedy, comedy, art, comedy.
Although, if you're wheeling it into an Acme, I don't know what the end game is going to be. Like, how quickly is Acme going to like descend on you? And
what if we just put it in like the area where the shopping carts go? What if you like went to the shopping cart area and there was just like a tie-dyed plushy coffin and like a woman in there? I don't know. Or like a funeral was happening. What if we set up a funeral space in that area where the carts go and there were just mourners and like weepers and like people and a cash registry and like a place for cards and a priest? Like, what the fuck?
Do it.
Yeah, right? That would just be like a thing.
Now you've completely generated a new thought.
It happened. But did you see how that just happened? Look, that was you and me. We just made that.
We're the new Dreamz. Yes. Like, what? And I really haven't seen much of your work. And the last couple of times,
what have you seen? Have you seen any of it, or
not
video? Or?
I've seen a couple of videos, trying to figure out what you guys are doing, and because, I don't know, like. Last couple times I did 1 minute monologue, you and Andrew were both in mime paint. And I think I was far enough away from you, like within the span of the 60 people, that I couldn't get back in to see what you guys are doing. So what were you doing with the mime stuff? Because I think it's happened multiple times.
Yeah, we're usually mimes.
Yeah.
There have been a few times when I was unable to do 1 minute monologues, and so Andrew will do something else by himself. But if it's the two of us, I think we were like riffing off of monologue at It's Talking, and the riff was like, what if we mime-alogue?
Yeah.
And then what if we split ourselves up so it's not the two of us together, but each act is referencing the mime that came before them.
Okay, right.
So in one of them, Andrew in one of them, I think Andrew like made something happens and he ends up vomiting. But then when I go out, I like have the vomit and I kind of take it from there.
Okay.
So it's kind of a continuation.
So
story.
So you're not only playing with the monologue part of it, you're playing with the time aspect of it, because you're theoretically giving yourselves double the time to work on.
Yes. And we're also
to create one scene, just maybe 10 people in between the two.
Yes.
It's
a treat, right? It's a little treat. Like.
Have people caught on to that? Like,
I mean, I'm sure, right?
I mean, I'm sure.
There's
a few, like, I don't know, maybe your batting average of the audience member, like, oh, there's another mime. That's weird. Like, or how many people in the audience don't know who you guys are?
I'm sure a lot of people have no idea who we are.
I mean, you guys are pretty much fixtures at Good. Like, you do more Good more than, like.
Well, we do a lot of art stuff, and I think that this is what I mean by these worlds kind of aren't touching.
Mm-hmm.
Our art folks, sometimes we can coax our art folks to come out to things,
right?
Because
the art folks might be coming to
we'll put the art breadcrumbs out. Yeah. But isn't that, I think that's so fucking important that so when we were doing Comedy Dreamz at the Barbary, they were like, oh God, my clitoris is growing as I tell you this story. Okay. So I would look out into the crowd and sometimes they would just be like, total rock and roll. Oh my God, hold on. What do I want to say? What the fuck is this band? Like, look what Motley Crue looking people, Motley Crue looking dudes, awesome like tattoo fake titty girls, like
that
laughing
are there
at like
because it's the Barbary, like it's a show at the Barbary, so you might as well like go to it. It's not necessarily they're coming for you; they're just coming for drinks at the Barbary. And then like it would
make me so happy that they were like laughing and drinking and enjoying it, or if somebody would approach me afterwards and say I really like that, I was like, what a fucking treat! What a fucking treat that you're not, let's say, of the scene, or like kind of what you're saying, the usual suspects showing up, and that you saw something new, and that you like it, and maybe tomorrow you'll think about it, and maybe a year from now, I don't know, it'll generate something for you. I don't know, just a thing. Or that you got to see different groups of people that you wouldn't normally see. Or like, for instance, I think there were some art folks that I know that probably wouldn't see more of a straight comedy thing, or maybe even any comedy. So having them see like a Josh Kosh or, a Joe Bell, or just having them see any kind of comedy was pleasing to me, that they were looking at that.
Do you get a sense that like the comedy aspect is looked down upon within the art community?
Yeah.
Like,
way. Are you kidding me? Absolutely. Oh, they cannot. Especially a certain kind of art.
Even when they overlap, like, or like the people within it overlap?
I think a lot of art takes itself so seriously, and you can't be funny. And it's not good, profound art if it's funny. That's what I think on some level. And then I think on the other side, yeah, absolutely, it like can live and breathe and like be there. There's a lot of fucking artists that are funny. There's a lot of artists like Bruce Nauman.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's like a performance artist and a sculptor, but I think he did a lot of his work in like the 60s, 70s, 80s. I mean, he's still relevant, still making work. But he had a piece called Fountain, and it was just him, I think he was naked, drinking water and spitting it out, and drinking water and spitting it out. And I'm like, that's motherfucking funny. I would laugh at that. And like, if you give me enough time, I'm sure I can think of some other people that are funny. I mean, what about that 14-karat gold toilet at the Guggenheim?
Right.
Is it the Guggenheim?
I think it's somewhere in New York.
I'm just like, that's fucking funny.
Yeah.
So good. To me, in a funny way.
I know there's a urinal at the Philadelphia Museum of Art, and I can't remember who the artist is, and it's it's supposed to be this commentary of. Well, I grew up and like studied art in high school and stuff. Like pop art was my jam because it didn't take itself as seriously as everything seemed to have had before it. Like, so Warhol, Jasper Johns came on the scene, Rauschenberg, Lichtenstein, like taking these everyday objects and elevating them to be art, or like even the process like of screen printing versus painting, those kinds of things in art. Like, and I don't know how much they got respect in their time versus looking back 20, 30 years after the fact. Like,
do you know who Chloe Wise is?
No.
She has some kind of relationship with, I think it's, I don't know, with Tim and Eric.
Okay.
But she is a painter. First of all, she's technically really, really, really good.
Mm.
She made a series of bags out of like bagels and bread, and then she gave them to friends. I guess she had a friend who was a model, and the model wore it to like a big runway show.
Okay.
And then kind of like touted it like this is like a new designer. And so this woman is really funny, and she'll do things like this that kind of like get attention and are kind of making fun of the thing that she is making the art around. But she is a pretty well-established artist, and the first time I became familiar with her work was this like line of bags that were bagels and croissants and hoagie rolls.
How does she make a bag? Like, I just don't understand the.
You have to see it. We should probably look. Okay, well, once we're finished with this, we're going to look it up.
Yeah, okay.
It looks like it's almost like a varnished bagel. It looks like she took a bagel, dipped it in varnish, like split it open, hollowed it out, and then someone put a pack of gum. It's like one cigarette, a pack of gum, and one tampon.
It is that small. Like I'm thinking like bagels sewed together to make like
no, it's
a hobo
really
bag
weird,
almost.
and it looks real. So I'm wondering if she just like varnished it and varnished a bagel.
What's something that you've learned from comedy versus, I mean, from your life of performance, from your life of art? What's something that comedy has taught you that you could either pass on to someone who's coming into comedy or just, some kind of life general?
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
Oh, damn.
I got to go deep as we end up.
All right, okay, wait. Can you, wow. That is some deep ass motherfucking shit. Some deep ass shit.
Practical, technical comedy knowledge or...
What did it teach me? What has it taught me? What did it give me? Mm-hmm. What is the gift that keeps on giving?
Some nugget that you can pass on to someone else?
Well, I guess I'm going to go back to some of the things we talked about earlier, which are some of the best comedians are the people that are deeply twisted and fucked up and like working that shit out in the only way they can. And what else has it taught me? God damn it. It's taught me that comedy is a space that can hold a lot of different things. Again, going back to what we were saying before, you can get up at a stand-up night and do a lot of things and have it be legitimate comedy, even if it's not like a technical stand-up thing. And fuck David Cross. Doesn't have to be you. Doesn't have to be real. You don't even have to stay. You can be completely like so far from like what you actually are. Yeah. And legitimately make something like very funny that will be interesting and beloved by many human beings.
And why do you keep doing it?
Oh my God, it's written on my bones. It's written on me bones. I think I just love it. It's just my spot. It's my thing. Like even though I really love making the artwork that I make, I think even that stuff is a little bit funny. Like the tie-dyed stuffed animal coffin or the wall of titties. There's like some humor in there. I like that shit. I like it. I think, it just speaks to me. And I'd rather, comedy will soften shit up too a little bit. I feel like it's approachable. Some artists or musicians or some other people that practice different forms of art, like film directors or actors, they're not approachable, but there's something about comedy that's more down home. It's buttered toast.
The reaction of making someone laugh is immediately inviting or welcoming compared to some kind of like dramatic piece that would make you cry. There's a different if you make me cry, I'm gonna push away a little bit more just because like I can't deal with that emotion versus if you're making me laugh, it's
more inviting.
It's a more humanizing, more social thing.
You push into that.
Yeah.
You fall forward into that. You don't have the same apprehension about getting close to that you might.
Right, because like if I'm crying about something, if some movie makes me cry, there's a part of me that wants to retreat because that to me, and it's not entirely true, but to me, crying, that kind of emotion is a solitary event, a solitary process. I'd rather cry alone and laugh with others, I think. Like, I don't know if that's completely true. Like, but even then, like, I've mentioned this a couple times, when my grandfather died, and since I didn't want to deal with my emotions, I was listening to stand up on the way to the funeral, like, to try to, like, tamper down the awfulness of that day, you know, like,
it's a good palate cleanse for death.
Yeah.
You're just like listening to hold on, who is that woman that has Lady Dynamite? What is this? She's bipolar.
Maria Bamford.
I mean, her, God, what a fucking genius.
Yeah, she's good.
I mean, what a way to, I mean, like, just like put your difficult, complicated mental illness, your bipolar disorder, on your lap and coddle it like a baby and like make peace with it.
And then subverting the idea of stand-up comedy by doing one special solely for your parents, and then her most recent Netflix special, as she goes through it, I don't know if you've seen it, she starts with just her husband as the audience, and then a couple friends, and a few more friends at like a dinner party.
That's art.
And then
this bitch is art.
A bigger crowd at like a bookstore full of like comedy, like it's this whole thing. And then eventually she ends up, spoiler, not that it's really a spoiler to the story, she's doing it in front of like a green screen, talking to the universe as a whole. Like, it's just so surreal and bizarre and awesome. And Maria Bamford's awesome. Like, she's great. I agree.
She's great. She's great. She's great. I ate Indian food in her backyard once.
In Maria Bamford's backyard.
With Andrew in Los Angeles town.
Fancy.
Her husband is an art guy.
Yeah.
And I saw some of her artwork, which is pretty fucking good.
Yeah.
She was doing portraits, or she did a portrait. It was great. It's black and white.
I didn't know she did art stuff.
I think she was just kind of fucking with it. I don't, but I liked it. And then I saw her dogs, her weird dogs, and she had a sculpture of just a nose on the wall in their house, a big, huge nose. Maybe it could have been a lamp. It might have been a light up thing.
That's weird.
Wait, now I want to copy that. Now I want to make like a big ear, or like a big hand that like lights up. Watch out, Maria! I'm coming for your stuff in your house.
Get in the gallery first. It's fine.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Rose.
Well, thanks. This was so dandy. Thank you for having me on. Bye.
Rose can be seen next as the new Dreamz and the incredible shrinking Matt and Jacquie combine forces to present Two Incredible, Two Dreams at Space 1026 at 1026 Arch Street. There are multiple shows between September 13th and the 16th, and more information about specific times and ticket prices can be found at fringearts.com. You can see me performing at Monologues at PHIT Comedy on Thursday, September 14th at 9:30 p.m. And of course, Philly Sketchfringe at the Playground at the Adrian on September 15th. 3 shows throughout the night featuring Dog Mountain, House of Solitude, The Decoy, The Prince, John and Ian, High Drama, and Mean Wendy Band. Tickets can be found at myfirstsketch.com/sketchfringe. My First Sketch is a Philly Sketchfest production. You can find out more information at phillysketchfest.com or on Twitter at PHLSketchfest. For more about comedy in Philly in general, head to watercooler.com. The music on this episode is by the band Nono, which you can check out at nonoband.bandcamp.com. And of course, like My First Sketch on Facebook. This is Josh Hyam. Thanks for listening. Go see some comedy.